Mission friends. One of the ways that I get to serve our churches is by being part of the Covenant's Missional Vitality team, which sits under the Mission Priority Start and Strengthen Churches. And this team has worked hard over the last few years to create a number of resources and workshops for the health and the vitality of our churches. Some examples are the PH Check, which is an online church assessment tool. There are transition resources, workshops such as leadership math, healthy systems, heart, mind, strength, and finding your why. And all of these you can find out about at the covchurch.org website if you look up missional vitality. But it's the last workshop I mentioned, Finding Your Why, that I want to highlight today. And Pastor Nick Pringle is here to help me do that. So Nick is the lead pastor of Cedarcreek Covenant Church in Maple Valley, Washington. And Nick, thank you for being here and giving this testimony, I suppose, of your experience. I guess my first question would be, what led your leadership team to request a Finding Your Why workshop?
Yeah, good question. I had been at this church for about a year, and we as a leadership team were discerning, like, where do we go next, or what's the right next step to take in our leadership with our church, with Cedarcreek, with what God's up to, and how do we know where to go first? And so we started with that PH check. We sent it out to all of our people digitally, and then Superintendent Greg Yee came out the night we got the results, and we got to go over it, and he helped to decipher all the numbers and all the data that was there in this huge packet. And the thing that rose to the top for us was our missional identity, was kind of the lowest piece of our whole from the PH check. And out of that missional identity piece, we thought, why are we here as a church? Why has God called us uniquely here? And let's dive into that why question. And so heard about the why seminar, and we decided that was the next step we as a church needed to take.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for the plug on the PH check as well. And that is a great assessment tool that we hope more churches will take advantage of. But so tell us a little bit about what the experience was like of having the workshop. What did it involve?
Yeah, so it was a 5-hour seminar, and it was a wonderful experience to be with people who had been there for decades, to people who had been there for only a year, and to hear the stories of Cedarcreek, to hear when were we at our best missionally, when were we at our best in our identity, when were we at our best as a church. And we got to tell lots and lots of stories. And at the end, we kind of took all of these stories and said, well, what's the thread throughout all of it? What is God saying to us of who Cedarcreek is through all of this? And so we began to put language on paper and to say, why are we here as a church? It was wonderful, and it was messy. It was challenging. But I was so thankful for Linda to be there and to help guide us through those conversations and to lead us into it. Out of that 5-hour seminar, then I talked with Dawn and Linda about what do we do next.
And Linda, let me just say, Linda Randolph, she's a coordinator for our PH check, but also a facilitator of the workshops. And so she was your workshop facilitator. Right?
And then at the end of the why seminar, we had our why statement. It was about 80% finished. And we needed to do that last 20%, but we couldn't do 20% with 50 people. So I gathered a smaller group of 5 or 6 people. I prayed over and who should be a part of this team, and who they had to be there on Saturday for that event. And then they came to be a part of this. And I encouraged our team to fast that day. And we met that night for our meeting with this smaller group, broke our fast with communion, and then spent the next 2 hours really discerning and scrubbing down our why statement so that it was concise, that it was reflective of who we are as a church, and it was easy to remember, but it also drew us into the future of who God's calling us to be as a church. So it took 2 hours, and it came together, and we were like, there's our why statement. And so that was incredible and wonderful. And then we got to bring it back to the church and say, look at the work we all have done, and look
Mhm.
at the work this small group has done. And here's our why statement.
Do you want to share with us what it is?
Yeah, the why statement is we seek to love like Jesus, so through him lives are transformed.
Mm, Beautiful. And tell me what you've noticed in terms of any of the fruit that's come. I mean, I know this is still very fresh, right? This is only a couple months old or
Since we've finalized that, we say the why statement in the beginning of all of our services. And then I invite all of us to stand, and we put the words on our screen, and we unify in a unified voice, say our why statement that leads us into worship. And I just remind us, this is why we're uniquely called to be this church family in this time, in this space.
And how do you think, I mean, kind of just guessing, but how it might help you as a pastor, the leadership team, and as a church?
I'm hoping that it will give us a vision to head towards, to say, hey, what ministries are coming up in our midst? What things are we thinking about doing? Does that fit in with our why statement of why God's called us? That's my hope, is that gives us vision and it gives us direction, but also encouragement day to day to say, we're living this out personally and then communally when we gather each week. I would say reach out to Don or to Linda and to say, here's where our church is at. What resources do you have? I have found that when someone from the denomination says something, it might hold a little different weight than when I say something. That when Greg Yee comes in and he's like, let's discern what your pH check says, and oh, look, this is rising to the top, they listen a little differently. One of the other things I forgot to say was, before the pH check results came in, Greg encouraged me. He said, Nick, I want you to do your own pH check on your church. And so he said, I want you to write down all those things that you see within your congregation, and then hold on to that. And he said, the night we get the results, bring out your pH check as well. It was wonderful to see those things that matched up and those pieces that maybe weren't, but it was a great affirmation of like, this is why you've called me to be here as your pastor. And yeah, and the why statement thing was it was so worth it. It was so worth it. I could just see the gift it was for our church in unifying us, in giving us direction. I'll tell you, it was hard, and some folks didn't agree with it. A couple folks, it was too hard for them, and they chose to say, hey, this isn't our mission, this isn't our vision, so they're no longer with us, and that's hard too. But to say, but this is the community and what the community discerned. Right. So there wasn't one individual, but it was definitely worth it, and it's been a gift.
Yeah. I appreciate you mentioning that it was hard. There is some grief in it as well, but overall you see the fruit and the goodness of it. And I just remembered back when we were scheduling it, how we had a lot of struggle, even setting a date and making it happen, and having to cancel and reschedule. And so it's good to hear you say it was worth it. So.
It was. And I would say too, the other encouragement I would say is get as many age groups as you can to speak into it. As many as you can, and give platform and space for those with different ages who maybe are smaller in number in the congregation. Because that was super helpful for us.
Oh, good.
Is that we have one person in their 20s, and it was so wonderful to hear them speak and to hear a different perspective than the majority who are in their 60s and 70s. So that would be another encouragement, is make sure that it's representative of all ages as much as possible. Yeah. To discern, because they're a part of the call too.
For sure. So. Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to reflect on this. And it would be fun to check in with you in 6 months or a year and see, what else has happened and what fruit has come. So thank you so much, Nick.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.